This webinar is a part of the National Newspaper Publishers Association virtual conference. Our particular focus will be innovation and technology, the opportunities for the Black press of America. And we're very fortunate to have two of our leading newspapers to join this discussion. Ashley Smith, associate publisher of the New York Beacon and the Philadelphia Observer. Ashley, welcome. And we have one of our senior members of the board of directors, but also distinguished publisher of the West Side Gazette in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Bobby Henry. Bobby, thank you for joining us. And we also have Perry Busby, also from the West Side Gazette. Perry is the technology expert at the West Side Gazette. Enchanta Jackson works with Topicaroo, who's put together this amazing team of data scientists, as well as Jamecia Gray, who's now, I believe, in Orlando, Florida. But she's doing some exciting work, and she can talk about what she's doing in terms of technology and young people, making sure that the vote is out in 2020. Enchanta works with Topicaroo, who is producing the virtual conference of the NNPA. So without further ado, I would like to start out with our two young sisters first. From your knowledge of the Black press in 2020, what best practices in technology and innovation would you recommend not only to the New York Beacon and the West Side Gazette, but we have 228 other African-American owned newspapers that are part of the NNPA. So this is an overall discussion of what are some of the digital, what are some of the technical, what are some of the data opportunities for the Black press to advance what we do. Let me start with Enchanta.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chavis, for having me on the panel. It's an honor to be on here with everyone. I think there's a lot of potential here, right? So we're in the midst of a pandemic. COVID is definitely pushing everyone towards virtual learning, virtual events, and thinking of digital and online engagement in various ways. But we're also in the midst of a movement, which is very interesting because I will say that with Movement for Black Lives, the movement around ensuring that everyone sees and understands that Black Lives Matter, that movement, its undercurrent has been digital. Its undercurrent has been a lot of innovation, a lot of experimentation. And so because the world is shifting in that direction too, I think there's a lot that we can learn from that. One of the main things I think that we can learn from that is membership and base building through online engagement. So not just relying on in-person events, not just relying on people to buy papers off the street or that sort of thing, but actually using social media, tech tools, various types of CRMs in different ways that are not only engaging, but also track your audience so that you not only see, okay, they're engaged and they're interested in the content that we're sharing, but what else can they do? Can they do some more interactive type of engagement? Is it always just us pushing the content and them receiving it? Is there a way that we can have a back and forth somehow? Can we use Facebook group to do some type of discussion, something like that? So I definitely think there's a lot of opportunity to learn, to experiment, to see what best practices you have for your individual audience.
All right, very good. I see Brother Busby is shaking his head. Brother Peter, Perry, do you want to jump right in, and then I'll go to Jamecia. Unmute you. So Perry, you have, all the panelists have to unmute themselves. Can we unmute them?
I just requested to unmute.
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Dr. Chavis, again for having me. Appreciate it to meet my sister, Enchanta. I am also a computer scientist by training. So I'm always excited to see my young brothers and sisters who have come into the field. And I couldn't agree more, because Enchanta and I come from from different generations. I'm in my mid-50s. I was in the IT field when PCs first came out. That technology has changed, but I've also seen its impact on society. And while we are looking at ways in which we can use it, we must also be innovative in its uses, because what has happened with technology from us as a consumer group is that we are primarily the consumers. And so we have got to find innovative ways in this information age to continue what the Black press started. And that was creating a communication link that was untethered by outside forces. And so what we should do is really begin, as Enchanta said, to find some innovative ways to connect, not just for the sake of just talking and having a communication phase, but delivering those messages that are unique to our people, because we found out this is the medium by which they receive most of their information. So we've got to make use of that.
Very good, thank you. Jamecia, I want you to chime in, but also tell us something, what you're actively engaged in right now, that the Black press could be an ally, can align, and work toward making sure that the 2020 Black voter turnout is not suppressed, but overcome and, in fact, lead the way. But tell us from a technological perspective, what are the opportunities that you see for the Black press of America?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of shiny things out in the world in terms of technology, and there's a constant, there's new constant materials and tech rolling out every day. It doesn't mean we have to do all those things. And Enchanta know this because I say it all the time in our digital trainings, is just because of all the new stuff out there doesn't mean you should be there. You should be where your people are. And that's where data will come in hand, because your data, which is just information about your people, is going to tell you whether or not your people are on Facebook, whether or not they are on Instagram, whether or not they are on Twitter. And what we've seen happen, one is we see whole on blogs and news outlet that were born and birthed on the internet. In particularly, I'm thinking of Instagram, and I'm thinking of the Shade Room, which has millions of followers, which most of them are Black people, ranging in age. And so the possibilities are endless. And right now, I am a part of a very dynamic group of Black women who have planned and have officially and publicly launched the Black National Convention, which will be happening August 28th after Al Sharpton's March on Washington. And our convention is going to be completely virtual. And it wasn't originally that way, but Corona happened. And so we could have easily gotten lost in the sauce of all the beautiful, techie, shiny new things out here. But we had to be strategic and ask ourselves, one, who are our people? Who are we trying to talk to? And then where are they? Mm-hmm. And so that literally guided what tech tools that we use, what we will be using to launch the Black National Convention. And that's going to be a space where we're inviting over 4 million Black people to come and help us ratify the Movement for Black Lives, Black Liberation policy platform, because we have something to say. And being the Black press, it would be great and it would be amazing if y'all were there to amplify and uplift all of these great things that are happening that's being led by Black people all across this country in terms of 2020. Like,
what is the age range of the group of Black women that are starting the initiative that you're explaining?
It ranges. I mean, I feel like the youngest person is 24. And then the oldest person, I don't know. I ain't trying to get in trouble for calling somebody old. And they
okay.
Black don't crack, so I can't
All right.
tell.
Okay, that's fine. Ashley, the New York Beacon, you're in the largest market, media market in the world, New York City. Based on what you've heard from Perry, from Enchanta, and from Jamecia, what's your vision for the New York Beacon in terms of innovation and technology?
So I think I've spoken about it a little bit before. We're like really focused on like the video aspect of everything. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we want to be people that still tell stories, right? Like it's hard for us as a small company to compete with a lot of the, with the speed of information. You know, like people are getting so much information through like social media and Facebook. And when I say information, I mean like in terms of the speed of real-time reporting. So what we're trying to focus on is come across as tell stories in a little bit of a more cinematic approach. And so we're just trying to target holistic stories rather than just being able to give somebody a blurb about what's happening. So there's more information that's been recycled. We're trying to create an infrastructure where we can tell people stories and get individual stories out there and promote our message that way in terms of the beacon and circulating that kind of content throughout the web and on social media channels. That's like our main focus right there. So then, you know, backing up on what Jamecia was saying, it's, you know, we want to get, so say like these protests that are going on right now, right? We can't compete with the amount of footage and the amount of content that's already captured on these throughout these platforms. But what we can do is like we're trying to connect with individual protesters and let them tell their story and their perspective of the protest, if that kind of makes sense. We're just trying to individualize the content to make it a little bit more digestible and a little bit more personable to the end recipient. So like when I first started dealing with the Beacon, we were going out and we were shooting, you know, people that were, you know, so we get these press releases, right? All the papers, we all get these press releases, and some of these press releases will have like this information about maybe new bills being passed. So like we'd be interviewing senators and things like that. And then we'll like go in and like, we'll visit these locations where, you know, maybe the people that are affected by these bills are affected by whatever piece of content or whatever new policy is out. And then we'll just try and capture their experience. And that's been giving us like a nice little bit of traction. We've slowed down on it because we're just trying to build the infrastructure of how we can be consistent with that kind of content, if that makes sense.
Yes. Bobby Henry, I think that in talking with a number of our publishers from across the United States, the issue of monetization, once you get on the social media platforms, once you start integrating the content and distributing the content in multiple platforms, most publishers that I've talked to are still wondering, how can this generate revenue in order for the papers to be sustainable? If it's true that the digital age is the age of the future, as well as the present, the monetization. Have you faced that in the West Side? Are you making money off of your social media?
Well, first of all, Doc, let me say thank you so very much for allowing me, a dinosaur, to be a part of this conversation. I really want to digress for a moment and just back up just a little bit. Miss Gray, you look like your aunt. Is Rosine Fire your aunt? You're akin to the Gray family, the great coaching, and that's very personal to me. And that's how this entire social platform for me is that it's very sociable. And to answer your question, Doc, are we making any money off of our social media? No, we're not. We're not. We are just stepping into this area. I was one of the ones who was afraid to move onto this platform. But thank God for people like Perry and Miss Goldwire, my daughter-in-law, Ariel and Broderick, my son. All of these young people are dragging me along. At first, again, I wasn't willing, but I'm willing because I now understand. And I do understand that no mechanism, no engine, no plane, no train, nor any movement can happen for the best of all people unless they had some people behind them with a vision. And even though I may be behind them with the vision of the past to push the train forward, they are still allowing me to do this, and we are learning how to do more. So I hope I answered your question. No, we're not making money, but we can see the potential of what can happen. As Ashley was saying, once Ashley gets his foundation, gets his vision on a solid foundation, I'm sure every Black paper across the country will be running the footage that he has because it's in his blood and he wants to do it. And those publishers like myself want to do it and to make some money off of it so we can continue to have that pipeline of publishers and young folk coming through.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Both Ashley, Jamaica, and Perry, African Americans, we over-index on Facebook, we over-index on Instagram, we over-index on LinkedIn. I think we are nearly over-indexing on Twitter. But even though we are massively involved in these channels, in these platforms, when I check with a lot of Black-owned businesses, in particular, all of our newspapers that are Black-owned businesses, the struggle is to generate revenue based on our consumerism, based on our involvement, based on our engagement. And in your studies, in your scientific work, in your data gathering work, are there some best practices you can share with our publishers and with the public at large that's listening of how to monetize social engagement, how to monetize our participation in these? What if we, I know you're getting ready to have a Black convention, which I think is a great idea, but has there been any thought of owning our own platform, social media platforms? So, or maybe if we owned it, we still probably would make. I just want to know what your thoughts are, because in a business environment, what sustains a business, a number of things, but particularly Black-owned businesses, we have to play catch up. It appears, in how to generate revenue based on the trust. We're the voice of Black America. We're the trusted voice of Black America. But sometimes other entities that are not trusted, they're making money off of the recirculation of the content that emerges out of the Black community. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Best practice wise, you said a word that I'm going to say again, which is engagement. So like not just creating the profiles on these social media platforms, but engaging with our readers, our followers on that social media platform, because that engagement is going to keep them coming back and switching up our content. And I know traditionally in print media, we're constantly feeding content, but thinking of ways to get other folks to contribute to our content, and not just I'm giving, but I'm also, this is like a partnership. Like we're engaging in conversation, or I'm inviting you to go live with me on Instagram because I really want to know, what is it like on the ground in Birmingham, Alabama right now? Are people still in the street uprising? Who's leading those uprisings and why? And so that's my number one best practice, is engage the folks that are there, and to constantly grow the folks, your bases that are there. So it's a bit of organizing in there too, right? So always expanding your base, just like some of the tactics you might use in print, the same thing on digital. We're just targeting. And so data will also come in handy and be your best friend too, because like your readers may not know that you're on Instagram, but you can geo-target your readers and push out and boost a post that's very important information and things that are relevant to them that they'll see, which will then bring them back to your profiles and your pages, and which will then also boost your audience, boost your base, boost your reach, and then you can then get ad deals or whatever, you know, to generate revenue. And so that's like one of my number one best practices is engaging your people, base building, and then what does your data say? What are the people that are there saying? What do they like? Why are they constantly coming back to your pages, your profiles, and your papers?
All right, thank you. Enchanta or Perry, you want to add in?
Well, for me, and again, Bobby, thank you for considering me as one of the youngsters on the West Side Gazette staff. But again, looking at this, social media, I think we should have a two-pronged approach to this. Yes, social media is where we are, but as I said, I started when PCs were just coming out, so you can see how fast this progresses. One of the things that are really taking place within our society right now is just the advent and the overabundance of smartphones and smart devices, which means that at some point we may want to look even beyond just the standard platforms and communicate directly with users. I mean, that's what the whole mobile app platform is about. And so that we don't have to deal with trying to filter out or get above the noise. We have direct communications. And so that may be one of the things that we want to look at in terms of a more long-term approach, is that how does NNPA bring, curate all of this information into its own portal that's independent of Twitter or Facebook? Because here's the way I look at it. As Facebook goes, so does your social media. Or as Twitter goes, so does your social media. So I think while it is good in the short term, one of the things that we should begin to look at is more long-term approaches, such that we have this communication with our following without the encumbrance or the parameters of some of these other social platforms.
Yes, Ashley.
I just wanted to bring something up. I feel like we have like a lot of focus on, you know, the growth on social media and these platforms. But at the end of the day, I feel like content is king. Now it's like we can build our social media platforms and we can reach out for that engagement and hope, but I think what's really going to drive people to our papers and our situation is the kind of original content that people can come to us for that they're not getting somewhere else. So, you know, as far as like just, you know, arbitrarily just, you know, posting stuff, I think there just needs to be a strong focus on what are people coming to us for. You know, like, do people want to come to the New York, you know, they want to come to the West Side Gazette because they know they're going to get this story, or they know they're going to get this fresh perspective in a very organic and original way. You know, it's not easy. You know, it's just it's a consistent focus on that original content. You know, why? Because, you know, it's one thing just to be online, right? We have our Instagram set up and, you know, we try to engage with people a lot. You know, I have people always responding to all the comments and, you know, reaching out for more people. But, you know, new good stuff is what's going to keep everybody coming back to our papers, you know? So like, let's see, like one week, you know, Bobby has something new that nobody else has. All right, so then Bobby's going to share this, you know what I'm saying, with us. And that's like some original stuff, you know? Next week, you know, I have some new stuff that nobody else has. And, you know, everybody wants to share that. But the basis of it all is that it's all original. They can't get it anywhere else. And that's what's like really going to drive people to our papers. Like when they know they can come to us for something original, new, and kind of cutting edge.
Right.
You know?
Can I chime into that?
Yes, of course. Enchanta.
I definitely agree with that. And I would even add, when they can trust your analysis around what is happening. So I used to work at Color Change, and when I worked there, it was less of a, right now it's online and it's offline. But when I first started, it worked more so like a media room, and everything was digital, everything was online, and we were always breaking stories. And one of the things that I realized while I was working there was, email works great. It works way better than a lot of people realize. You are able to segment your list and engage people in a very deep way through email. And two, people are dying to have Black people break down and explain some of the racial analysis around things that happen every day. And, you know, a lot of us have the privilege to go and get educated on all the bell hooks and Angela Davis and all this and all that. Some people are just entering into that phase. Some people might have never even thought that R. Kelly should have been muted, you know? So all of these like complex things that are happening in the world, that if you go on Twitter, everyone's having these conversations and you might not get a deep educational experience from it. But I think with the Black press or Black engagement organizations in general, offering that analysis to folks, helping people understand, meeting people where they are, is like one of the key things that I think is vital to our Black engagement around press, campaigning, and that sort of thing.
And all that will help, you know, build those social media platforms, you know, like all that originality is what's going to kind of drive people and grow that social media audience, you know?
It's interesting that corporate America, since the video, Ashley's point, the video of George Floyd being murdered on the street in Minneapolis, is a video that traveled around the world many, many times, still traveling. And as a result, some of the Fortune 500 companies are making these announcements almost every day. They're setting aside this grant, these funds, this initiative, trying to not assuage the anger and the pain and the sorrow that Black people have felt and are still feeling. But I think there's somewhat of an inflection point, a tipping point. I don't want to be a prophet to say what is going to happen in the future. But I do think it's very interesting that if you look at the street demonstrations, you have just as many white people, white young people in particular, carrying Black Lives Matter signs. I was out on 16th Street on the 4th of July in Washington, D.C. And what I saw was people not just carrying signs, but I saw people bring their whole families out to get in touch with what they think the Black Lives Matter movement may be manifesting in 2020. But it started with that video. Now, it seems to me that a video that exposes white supremacy, that exposes racism in its fatal sense, is one kind of a video. But I want to also suggest that we need a range of the visual of our, not just our predicament, but our striving for excellence. I think that I want us to be careful that we don't allow just one aspect of what it means to be Black in America to get to be the paradigm through which, or the lens through which, Black America is evaluated. I hope I'm making sense. I think that the Black press is in a unique position to rearticulate, to reaffirm not only who we are, but where we're going. And it seems to me that it's not deciding which platform. I think we have to be on all platforms. It's not about whether or not we're going to be with young people or old people. We got to be with all ages in our community. We're a diverse community, but it seems to be that persons outside of the African American community are not adopting, but seem to be expressing a greater interest for whatever reason in the ongoing struggle for freedom, justice, and equality that's really been led by Black people. But every inch of progress that Black people have made in America, all other people benefit from it. Voting rights, civil rights, human rights. So I think that for the Black press, as we strive to be sustainable, on the one hand, I would caution us getting caught up in the whirlwind, but on the other side, we have to be vigilant and we have to be out there on the front lines. And that's what's so impressive to me about the current 2020. If you look at the headlines in the Black newspapers, and through the convention, we're going to be showing a lot of the headlines of our newspapers in 2020. It shows that the Black press, even during the pandemic, which disproportionately has been deadly on Black America, we have not retreated from being on the front line of coverage, being on the front line of articulating, being on the front line of advocating. So with that, I'm going to hear our panel talk about how you see the future through the lens of what you've identified. And now Ashley is saying that for him is video, it is authentic, it is capturing the images going forward. I think a lot of the publishers who are watching right now are live when this is broadcast during the convention. I want to know what are the nuggets, what are the jewels that you can drop that will help our Black press in America enhance what we've always been doing, but particularly in light of the circumstances of today and how maybe the technology that's available, the innovations that are happening can help level the playing field so that we have a greater opportunity, because a lot of times because the playing field has not been leveled, for example, ad agencies. Sometimes the major corporations say they want to advertise with the Black press, then the ad agency that they hired discourages them from advertising in the Black press. So we're always playing catch up. And I think there was ever a time for us to move not from a catch up position, but to a frontline position, not only in terms of attracting advertising dollars, but using the technology, the technologies that are in our current Black press operations. I think I see more opportunity today than ever before. But that's how I see it. I don't want you to necessarily agree with me. I would like to know, do you see opportunities ahead for the Black press? That's the question.
Can I take this one first?
Yes.
And I don't want to take away from anybody else who wants to talk, but I would love if, Jam, if you could respond to this, because you definitely do a lot of that. I'm just thinking about the ways Movement for Black Lives uses Black joy. So not just like the sharing of people dying, but showing the joy behind the protest, the joy behind the organizing to get people engaged.
Yeah, so we believe in Black joy, like Enchanta said. So we don't just share all of the traumatic things that are happening. We like to showcase the people on the ground when they're happy and they're singing and they're chanting, because that's ancestral, it's a part of our roots and history, and it's also beautiful. And while people are using all this tech stuff and soaking it in, we want to be able to invite pleasure into their homes, not just fear and not just tears, but what does it look like to actually experience joy when you're in the middle of an uprising? So that could be sharing beautiful TikToks of these Black babies laughing or falling off a couch or whatever it could be. It can be all of the people that are like on the ground protesting. So we always get the bird eye view, but what about the person point of view, right? And you get to see all this joy, all this love for all these people that are like in the streets because they believe that we deserve more. And so being able to share culture, in a sense, like our culture and Black culture is not monolithic, right? And so being able to share our culture and balance that with news, whether that news be negative or positive, is also a way of keeping your people engaged. It's like, I'm not just going to go to the West Side Gazette's stuff online just because I want to find out everything that's going on. I'm also going to go because I know that they share really great videos that brighten my day, right? And so that's something that we do with M4BL, even as a micro organizer or influencer, like Enchanta likes to call me, I do it too. But it really is a way to engage and build that base, right? Offering people more things.
Yes, thank you. Ashley and Perry and Bobby want to weigh in? What do you see as the opportunities for the future? You want to
Okay, I'll weigh in. What we're doing right now at the West Side Gazette, specifically around voting, I started really with the West Side Gazette out of a desire to really get the focus of voting in front of our people, because what I've seen is that we always become engaged at election time, when really elections span year round. And what we found, and it's, I have to speak personally in this, I got involved with a local volunteer group, and the West Side Gazette has really become the media mouthpiece for this group. It's called Citizens Audit Broward. And what it is a group of volunteers where we go to the polls after they close to capture the poll tape results. And I won't go into all the technical details, but out of that effort, we were able to find some discrepancies in voting in the election results. And more importantly, we are right now, Bobby and I are really in the midst of a discussion with the local election office regarding an article that I wrote, which went viral on Twitter. The main voting election software company came out and said that we were incorrect. First they said we were incorrect, but then secondly, they said that we misunderstood. To date, they still haven't clarified what supposedly we misunderstood. But in this process, what I found is that when you begin to look at election result integrity, a lot of that is happening within our communities. A case in point is right in Shelby County, Tennessee. In 2015, during a local election, they found that the election results had been undercounted within four of the top Black communities in Memphis by 30 to 40%. That would not have been known unless it was for a young guy who was taking pictures of the poll tapes. And so what we are doing now from a national standpoint around this whole idea of election integrity is now pushing the mindset that it is just not enough to vote anymore. We have got to vote and get involved, because after voting is the participation, but elections are won after the polls close. And when you look after the polls close, there are very few of us involved in that process, because we're either at the election parties or we're at home waiting for the results.
Right.
And so now we have got to get our communities more involved, because that result that comes out of your precinct is the voice of your community, and there is no more way that we can say all politics are local than the politics that come out of our precinct. And so we have got to get out of the mindset of telling our people to just vote. We've got to get them involved in a process that happens after voting. And we've seen enough evidence over the years, especially since 2016, of not, and I don't want to call it voter fraud because that's not what it is. It's election fraud. And we've got to get ahead of it because our elections are so technically driven. And when you look at the election office, and again, I'm not trying to be biased in any way because I'm one of these old people, so I can say it. Jam, I'm one of these old people, but when you go to vote, you're going to see that that whole process is being run by people much older and outside the technology realm. And so we've got to get involved and change the mindsets around voting. I think that because it is so technology driven, that we do need young people like Jam and Enchanta who understand the data on one side, because we are woefully ignorant when it comes to how the election process takes place.
Well, you know, voter suppression doesn't start at election day.
Right.
Voter suppression is year round, it's perennial. Just a few weeks ago, went viral, the video of, you probably saw it from Kentucky.
Yes.
Knocking on they closed up the polls. So thousands and thousands of people were never permitted to vote. Black people shut out of the voting because the people in Kentucky knew there was an uprising, and the uprising was translating into people going to the polls in record numbers. So the only thing they figured they could do in Kentucky was not count the vote, but to deny
the place. Yeah.
But I'll ask you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was scratching my head.
It's okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my thing is, I think that we are onto something about technology. I think we should use technology not just as defensive, but we have to use technology as offensive. What I mean by that, being proactive. We need a data plan. We need a innovation plan. We need a strategy of how to get through this election. Same thing with the census. You probably heard that now the U.S. Department of Census announced they're going to extend the census because of COVID-19. There was a lot of undercounting. And of course, you already know who are the most undercounted constituencies. And the census is going to determine the allocation of resources. So we have all these things going on. A pandemic, COVID-19, an epidemic of racism, undercounting of the census, and voter suppression, all happening simultaneously, not sequentially. So the fact that we have to not to throw our hands up, but to me, when the oppressor decides to pop the whip, we have to decide either to take the whip out of the oppressor's hand. And I'm not suggesting, Bobby, that we put the oppressor back, but I do think it's important not to bend over and take constant whoopings.
Dr. Chavis,
the cup runs over.
Okay. Doc.
Yes.
Okay. You asked what could we do from an innovative standpoint?
Yes.
We as a race of people have always been ostracized, left out, taken for granted. So what has been laid in my lap is the opportunity to talk and tell the stories of the brothers and sisters who are behind the wall. There was a situation where technology played a great part in it. Some brothers and sisters who are incarcerated have access to phones these phones have allowed them to record their stories and their stories of others. And I'm not saying that everybody that's incarcerated is innocent. Regardless, they still have a story to tell, and they are still human beings. So what I'm doing, my personal task is to tell the stories of those who are incarcerated from their own words, of activities that are happening outside. COVID-19 is running rampant in our penal systems. And we have had letters and stories from brothers and sisters on the inside telling a whole different story of what we're getting from everyday news. Today, I had a conversation with a brother who was explaining the George Floyd situation from a perspective that a lot of us refuse to look at. And that's a perspective from a genocidal point of view, that mentality where this man this human figure put his knee on a human's neck and killed him. The brothers who saw it from the inside of prisons, they cried because they felt the pain that this brother was subjected to from a racist mentality that they experience every day. And they could not show their feelings from a daily perspective for fear of being taken advantage of by others. Yet and still, when this brother was murdered on national TV, these brothers wept openly for this brother. So if we don't, who have the wherewithal to tell the stories of our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated, to give them life as a human, to make that connection, then I think we're doing a very serious injustice of what was once done to us. And that is to be invisible, to be felt like we're invisible. So that's what we're doing.
All right. So again, Ashley, in New York City, I see that while the virus is emerging all over the country, New York seems to have, at least temporarily, stemmed the tide. How has the New York Beacon utilized video and other technologies to get some of these stories out to your readership and to the people who go online to view the content from the New York Beacon?
So like some of the content that we've shot thus far, it's literally been people going out. Like, so a lot of the things have been like from the protest. Like I've literally had people going out to the protests and, you know, taking pictures. We haven't done the video of the protest yet. Not saying it's not going to happen. We haven't done it yet. But the pictures that we've got have been pretty graphic. Like they've been like from people like really being there. And so like we're using, you know, obviously we have our website, we kind of tune that up a little bit. And then we've just been using Facebook and Instagram, you know, and like we've been getting our images out. Like we try to utilize like our Instagram post just for all like high res captivating images to get them likes and get people out there. Pretty soon we're gonna start doing some graphic design stuff on the Instagram, but our Instagram has been growing a good little bit, not fast enough, but it's been growing. And that's like our main use of pumping visuals. Like I try to use Facebook for more of like the controversial topics, but anything with like really nice visuals, I send that out on Instagram.
Right. One of the things that we're contemplating in the NMPA, and we're going to be calling upon Enchanta and Jamecia and also you too, Perry. We want to do an innovation best practice of the week.
Mm.
There are 52 weeks. Every week we want to, Bobby, send out a message based on a best practice that works. If it works for the Los Angeles Center, it may work for the West Side Gazette or the New York Beacon or the Chicago Defender or the Pittsburgh Courier or the Houston Forward Times. We have papers all over the country in all of these places, in the urban centers as well as in the rural centers, where African people, African Americans are concentrated. One of the things I wanted to ask each of you as we talk about innovation and technology, one subject matter we have not talked about is the global situation. People are marching not just in America, but in Germany, in France, in Australia, in Africa, in Brazil, in the Caribbean. How does the Black press in America, utilizing technology and innovation, expand its reach to the global community with the authentic content that we produce, that we distribute? Because I can assure you, what is interested the readers of our newspaper in New York or our newspaper in Florida or wherever also interests our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. It's just a matter of getting that information. If we're going to have a digital network, we're trying to build it. In my view, it should be not just a domestic network, it should be global. Can some of you comment on what your view is in terms of technology and innovation expanding the aggregated and the collective reach of the Black press of America to the sphere of our global brothers and sisters?
I'm gonna jump back in here, y'all. Because I'm not sure if y'all saw all the, I'm pretty sure y'all the press, so y'all know all about the defund stuff that's going on.
Yes.
I keep talking about Movement for Black Lives, but during Juneteenth, we had a day of action that spanned across 23 countries. With 650 events happening on the ground. And then we utilize, of course, social media to have what we called M4BLTV. So we had people speaking and just educating people on different things that we talk about, all the systems, the isms, and the things that are happening on the ground. And I say and share this to say that it's possible and it's beautiful and it's happening. And that, like, I don't even want to say the sky is the limit to what we can do when it talks to having international coalition organization with press and with people on the ground. But what I will say is that relationships, and I'm positive all y'all have some relationships with somebody in other countries that's doing great journalistic work or capturing like just beautiful images of what's happening in real time. But what I can add about what we did as an entity was it was massive. And one, it was a team of us doing it. We could not do it by ourselves, but it was a team of folks who were committed and believed and knew that not just the people on the ground need to know what's going on, but everybody at home, people who may have weak immune system, who might not have had the resources to get there, who may not have internet access outside of their smartphones. And so thinking like, how can we access them? And then using those mediums to do that. And it was really beautiful what we were able to accomplish with the team of folks in terms of like tech and stuff reaching across countries. So I'll just say that, share that nugget, then I'm gonna go back on mute.
Okay. Enchanta, you want to add in?
I don't have much to add, but I do think that we need more content from abroad domestically. I think a lot of folks here don't know about uprisings in other areas. I had a friend WhatsApp me the other day talking to me about what's happening in Trinidad and how they're uprising there. And I had no clue. I didn't see that in any of the news outlets. So I definitely think there needs to be more connected and sharedness around what's going, because I do feel like I do have a lot of friends abroad and they're pretty aware about what's going on here. We can have a very in-depth conversation around politics, protesting, what have you. But domestically, I think a lot of times we are short on information about what's happening in the diaspora?
You know, back in the day, in World War I and World War II, the Black press actually sent reporters to the front line because we could not rely on the mainstream press to tell what was going on with African American troops. My father fought in World War I, and the stories that he could relate to our family over generations, it just gives you a whole different perspective that when we talk about American democracy, we're talking about how do we get to where we are today. From the very beginning of this country, African Americans have fought for rights, fought for opportunities, and shed their blood for it. But yet, we see today these tendencies to fan the flames of racial divide. Because it's one thing, I was talking to the publisher of the Baltimore Afro yesterday, and the movement in Baltimore, they not only took down the statue of Christopher Columbus, they threw it in the Baltimore Harbor. So these are some different times. But the thing is, I remember something Dr. King used to tell us. We can change all the laws, we can change all the public policies, we even change some of the politicians that hold these high places. But until we change the hearts of all Americans, where deep down inside they really see the equality of all human beings rather than the disparities that are institutionalized, we still have to keep pushing. So as some of these statutes come down, even NASCAR is now saying you cannot fly the Confederate flag at a NASCAR race. Something is happening. But these images and these stories that we've all talked about over the last hour, I just want to make sure that in not just our editorializing, but our distributing this unique, valuable content, that we are able to enhance what we are doing. At our annual convention, it's just not the Black press where we're patting ourselves on the back, but I think it's more of an acknowledgement that we still have a lot of work to do. And it's acknowledgement and an affirmation that we have to utilize technology more than we've done in the recent past. I think it's in our interest. And that's why we really had this panel as part of the convention, because we're trying to point, Bobby, to some of the areas that we need to give some attention, and some of the areas we need to expand our staff. I think there are probably, I don't want to overstate it, Jamaica and Enchanta, but just from working with you over the last several days, I've found that, man, we got some brilliant, knowledgeable, experiential millennials, man, we need to be having in our shops, having in our places of doing business, so that we can move forward in a way that's not only holistic, but intergenerational. I think the future of the Black press is in our ability not only to transfer knowledge, to transfer insights, but to literally also learn from our young people who have a grasp of this technology in a way that I think could help us in real time, Bob. So, Bobby, you have to unmute. There you go.
Okay.
Can you
I'm
repeat what you're
unmuted.
saying, Bobby?
Okay, yeah. I was saying that being one who has been pulled along that pulling is not so hard once you understand what you're being pulled to. And you're absolutely right. The need for us to create a circle of understanding that we cannot all move forward unless we all are willing to go. Knowing who's in the foxhole with you can help us win a war. If I know the person in the foxhole with me is one that is technological savvy, data driven, I don't have to worry about technology or data. That person has it. My focus then can be on digging the hole to get us to the next place. So we do need every one of us, like, you know, and to biblically speak, we are one body with several moving parts. And it's going to take all these parts to get us to where we need to go. So that's where I am.
Very good. Perry, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, no, I just really want to echo everyone in terms of where we need to be in terms of bringing in Enchanta and Jamecia, I guess. That's
Miss Jackson?
But no, that is, we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we kept waiting for an opportune time to bring in millennials when we thought was the right time. Now is the time. We are, I can't estimate or really tone down the importance of this election and where we are going and all the avenues that we really need to be exploring to communicate not just how to vote, but all the essentials that are going, that go along with voting. I have noticed that Republicans, once they find out a strategy, they communicate that through their channels and it grows like wildfire. We've yet to do that effectively, and we already have the structure, which is the Black press. We already have the infrastructure to do it. We just need to put it in place, and we need to let those those who are involved know, because what I've noticed here, and I'm real new to South Florida, is that a lot of some of the young groups don't know that the West Side Gazette exists. Mm-hmm. And so we are, and when they find out that we've been around for 50 plus years, they're excited. So we have not been the best champions of our own story through the years. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've got to get back to doing. And we've got to reintroduce ourselves to these young, gifted technology people that we have and bring them on board. We have something that they really need, and that is the history. And so we need to provide the history and let them begin to pave the way.
So Ashley, in New York, how do you have ability to bring interns in to learn some of your craft?
Yeah, we actually got somebody, we got a couple of hires as of yesterday, so I'm about to call in. So I got somebody managing the intern stuff. But, you know, like, I think the struggle that I have with bringing in interns, and not to say it's a huge struggle because we can get them, but, you know, there's interns, then you like the super enthusiastic interns. It's just because, you know, we're competing, you know, like New York Beacon, our direct competition is going to be like a company like Blavity, you know, and it's hard to express to an intern why, you know, the benefits they're going to get from working with the Beacon and the benefits they're going to, you know, get from working with Blavity. So we're just all about, you know, promoting our name and giving, you know, like Enchanta kind of said earlier, you know, giving us that, you know, giving people, allowing our targeted audience to put their faith in us, you know, to be a credible and be that credible source that they can, that they believe in and trust in. So it's just all about growth right now. Like our whole innovation is structured on growth and our social presence, not just social media, but our establishing a social presence. So like, you know, where our brand becomes alive. We're not just a media outlet. You know, we're a brand, we're alive, we're breathing, and we're something that represents coolness. We represent equality, we represent things that are fair, and we represent the cutting edge of our industry. You know, that's what we're struggling to establish us as, so we can catapult to where we want to be and be like on the same playing field as like a Blavity or something.
Very good. So as we wind down, I'm going to ask each of you as we, first of all, thank you so much for taking time to share with the Black Press of America your insights on innovation and technology and the opportunities for the Black press. But I would like to start with you, Enchanta. What final word would you commend to the Black press about innovation and technology?
Starting with me. I think I would probably, off the top of my head, say just do it. I think a lot of people get intimidated by the words like tech, data, and that sort of thing, and you can kind of get stuck and paralyzed in that moment. But if there are so many resources out there, there are so many people that are hungry to help in any type of way. And I think if you are a leader, especially in this space of Black press, if you can really get out of your comfort zone and lead with humility and understand that you don't know everything, and it's okay not to know everything. That's why we exist in community. That there are people who know things that you don't know, and you know things they don't know. And by reaching out to others and taking risks and doing things like binge watching I May Destroy You on Netflix, and going out of your own comfort zone, like experiencing creative spaces for the first time. Those are the type of things that help you get out of your network box, your rigid way of doing things, and allow you to think more creatively, authentically. So yeah, I would just say, just try to really push yourself to the limit, take risks, and lean on your people, lean on people that you might never have leaned on before.
Right. Jamecia.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow up after man, honestly, all I can say is just to do it, right? There's no right time. There's no, well, I only got 100 followers now thing. Is do it. That consistency, that repetition, it'll become second nature for you. And I'm just the same thing, just do it. And yeah, leading with humility and knowing that you're going to make mistakes along the way. But once again, that's what community is for. And knowing too that it's enough for all of us to eat. It's enough for all of us to thrive in a digital space and operate from a place of abundance, right? The New York Beacon may be doing great, right? And the West Side Gazette, we may not be there yet, but we gonna get there, right? In due time. So operating from abundance that'll probably be the best piece of advice that I could give.
All right. Well, thank you. Good advice.
Abundance. I feel that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's deep.
All right. So, Perry, what would you commend to the Black press?
To embrace our uniqueness. We bring stories and an experience now that people are gravitating to. And for us to begin to just use that in a way and not to be afraid to ask. that is one of the things, we see all the time is people think that they always have to start from square one. No, let's make use of this young talent. And even if it's not ours to begin with, let's share, as Ashley was saying, hey, share the content until I can get on. However it is, we need to be innovative in what we do and just be committed to telling the story and getting it out there.
Very good. Thank you. Ashley, your closing word to the Black press?
I guess I'll just double back off what Jamecia was saying, just abundant efforts. There's no blueprint. Like, we don't have a solid blueprint to how to figure this out. And, it is just a lot of trial and error. It's going to be tons of mistakes, but, as long as we just stay consistent and stay positive about it, there's lots of opportunity, right? The money's not going to come because, hey, we just grew our social media channel, so all of a sudden we're going to get, these big old checks. It's not going to work like that, but it's that incremental growth that social media gives us that increases people's awareness. And once we keep people come aware of the West Side Gazette, the Beacon, and so forth, that gives us all potential to grow, all of us. So, stay consistent, stay on the top of technology, and just be eager and willing to try it, and, be positive about it. And, just look at it as a road you're excited to walk on.
Very good. Thank you. Bobby Henry.
Yes, sir. Doc, listening to all of these young folk, I really feel, I feel good. Miss Gray, Miss Jackson, Mr. Smith, Mr. Perry. It's because of people like you all that make people like Dr. Shavers and myself want to continue to be involved. We want to continue to be able to say, yeah, I know them people. They leading us. They have something to offer, and the fear is gone. So what I would say to the Black press, long live the Black press. And we live because of individuals like all of you. We live vicariously through you. Old though we may be, but we're not dead. And you continue to give us life. So my words to the Black press is to live, and you allow yourself to be led by somebody who knows. And that's what I'll say.
Thank you very much. All of you, words well spoken, insights well shared, and well appreciated. On behalf of the Black Press of America, thank you very much. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, y'all.